Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 9 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from IWA Mid South and my time there during 1997 to 2009. I am joined today by a man who came out of nowhere and captured the attention of IWA Mid South fans around Kentuckiana back in the Charlestown Blue Barn days. It's Uncle Honkey. Don, how have you been, man?
Doing pretty good, Life's has its up and downs, but right now I'm doing great.
That's great to hear. It's been a long time since we've gotten together and chatted. Nick Manawa had sent me your information, and I was just telling you before we started hitting record, some folks had been asking if you were going to be on the podcast. They wanted to hear from you and see how you were doing. So it's great to have you join me today.
I'm glad. This is an honor, man. IWA touched my heart, so to even get to talk about to get to talk about it to somebody and some people that will understand how fun and it was, it'll be cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast. It's let's reminisce about the old day, the good times that were had in IWA Mid South. I tell everybody when they come on here, it's a shame that, like, you are like me. Our wrestling stuff is IWA Mid South. And it's such a shame that, if we tell somebody about our stuff, it's almost embarrassing to tell them, well, Google this and what they're going to come across, because, people want to put the actions of one or two individuals and make it cloud the entire product. The product didn't, the product was great.
It was some of the best around.
It had a little bit of stuff for everybody. And there was some people that ruined it. But it's a shame that the overall product is tainted. A rotten apple spoils the bunch, as they say. But normally how I start off these podcasts is trying to get to know the guys, because as I've mentioned in the past on these podcasts, I didn't really get to personally know a lot of you guys. Our interactions were not in depth on shows back then, so there's a lot I don't know about you, Don. So how about you start off by telling me how you became a wrestling fan?
When I was a kid, I got to watching a TV one day, and I saw it was the old channel. I call it Channel 3 wrestling. It's the Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Jackie Fargo, the Fabulous Ones. That's what I started watching, and I fell in love with it. It captivated me, and I always said that I wanted to be a wrestler. So yeah, it touched me when I was a kid watching that, and then we never had cable and stuff where I lived, so I didn't know much about the WWF or the WWE, or even WCW, because they had the Atlanta wrestling, with TNT and stuff. I don't think no TBS, but we just but when I was at some kid's house that had a little bit more money, we had overnights, we would watch, the wrestling and stuff like that when it was on TV. So, yeah, I just started out, with Jerry Lawler and all them guys, and that's how I started watching wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean the Memphis territory was great back then. Everybody came through that territory.
Everybody.
Everybody that was worth their weight in salt, they would come through that territory and
Yeah.
have a run at some point. I don't think there was any major star from our childhood that, did not spend at least a little bit of time in Memphis. And the fact that you got, I'm always jealous because I grew up in Chicago, so I didn't have the opportunity to watch the Memphis. I had to follow it through Pro Wrestling Illustrated, The Wrestler, Inside Wrestling, all that stuff. So I never got to see any Memphis stuff until I actually got to the point where I had started coming down to University of Kentucky as a student, and by then, USWA, the Memphis territory, was wrapping up, and it was soon to be that they were going to go away. And so I missed all that heyday, and I'm jealous of the guys like you that got to grow up on it. But I had that same emotional connection to watching, Georgia and Crockett's on TBS growing up. And, you said that you always dreamed of doing it as you were watching it as a kid. Did you actually think that it was something that you could actually end up doing, or was it a pie in the sky kind of dream? So I tell everybody, I never thought it was possible that I'd ever get in. And, as much as I loved it and as much as I daydreamed about, being able to do it one day, it never even clicked in my head that it was remotely a chance that it would happen.
Well, I always said I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it. And I guess what kind of changed it for me was my uncle told me one day that, and I had an uncle that was really hard on me, said that I was too stupid and lazy to ever be a wrestler. So I always had it in my mind that I wanted to do it. I just didn't know how I was going to do it because, like I said, I just didn't have what you would say. I didn't have any connections, or there was no wrestling schools in my area. And then one day I found of a wrestling school, and you're not going to believe it was actually Danny Davis.
Really?
Yes, and Danny Davis, he had where you paid $300 and you got so many lessons, and you actually got to work a match. They recorded it and blah. So I got my in, and I started training with Danny Davis. So I was actually training and doing pretty good, I thought. And then one day, I'm pretty hard on myself. Uh, I went off there and I kicked the ropes, and I think I hollered "fuck." I was just so damn mad at myself because I messed up a drill. And Danny pulls me to the side and kind of scolds me and talks down to me about how we're not going to have language like that. And then, I kind of thought to myself, said, hell, I paid to be here, and I'm a grown man. You're not going to talk. You're just not going to pull me to the side. And look, he had the guts to put, he did, he had the what's the word I'm looking for? Where he pulled me to the side and didn't do it in front of everybody. But everybody knew what he was talking to me about, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I quit.
Okay.
So I said, fuck Danny Davis, and I always had it in for Danny Davis.
Okay. Now, what year was this?
This was probably about 2 years before I got involved with IWA.
Okay. All right. So end of the 90s is what we're looking at then. And so IWA was probably already running at that point. If it
Oh yes, because I went to the Kmart building in between, even when I was training with Danny, I heard of I think I don't know if the Kmart building, but anyway, I went to the Kmart building and was wrestling watching wrestling there, watching IWA wrestling, and the old Kmart building was my jam. I
Oh,
mean, when oh my God, to see the shit that they were doing in the Kmart building, and I'd never seen it before, and it was just like, woo! Oh, man, I fell in love with it. So I actually, you know, would go to any show that I could because I worked a lot. I always worked a lot. Even when I was wrestling with IWA, I mean, I worked so much. It was really hard for me to do both. So I would have to choose, and I would work, because I had to have my money, of
got
course.
to get that money.
But one day I was at a show at the um, where was this show at? It was at the Charlestown building, at the barn, and I met these people named Rocky and Susan, and they knew Ian. They had met Ian through, I don't know how exactly they met him, but I got to hang with him. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were the ones making those atrocious tables that had, that we would make. We would get the legs from Ian, and then we would, start making tables, and these tables had light tubes glued to them, and every light tube had thumbtacks on them, and then they had alcohol. I don't know if you remember them or not, but
Yeah, I
you were
remember
there
some of
for it.
those kind of weapons. Yeah.
You were there though. I mean, you were there, but we were known for we were kind of known for me, Rocky, and them were known for making these tables. Well, we kept making these tables, and then they one day they introduced me to Ian. And me and Ian got to talking. And I said, Ian, I'm jumping the gun. I'm jumping the gun. And then they introduced me to one day. Rocky and Susan got invited with me to the creator's house, where Ian invited us. They were having a cookout at the creator's house. And Creator was a huge Dallas Cowboy fan, also. I think he wasn't he?
I believe so.
I'm so there. So I'm at the creator's house, and then me and Ian get to talking, and I say, Ian, if you put me in something, I can draw tickets. I have a bunch of friends. I'm known in this area. Because everybody knows me from Big O. I said I can probably draw some tickets in, and then when he heard that, it didn't matter. I had no training or nothing. I was there. I could sell tickets. That's all I was worried about, was selling tickets. So I got to know Ian a little bit, and then hauled him around. And then we were making my debut. He come up and called me one day when I was on a road, taking him to go get barbed wire for a match up there there was in there in Charlestown at the place where you hauled him up. I had a truck, so I hauled him up there to get that. And he said, we're gonna bring you out as Uncle Honkey. And he said, I'm gonna hook you up with two young ones, with Richard X and hy-zaya. So we had done some planning, and then about a month later, after paying my dues a little bit, as you say, tearing down the ring, that's really how I got in there, because me, Rocky, and Susan and all us would stay late and help tear down the ring and put it, it never put it together because we was at work, but we always would help tear down the ring and carry it and stuff like that, because they were working inside at first, and then they got shut down, and then doing it outside, tearing down that ring. So that's where I made my debut, when it was outside. So yeah, just basically just Rocky. I owe it all to Rocky and Susan for letting me fulfill my childhood dreams by introducing me to Ian, who saw that I told him I could sell some tickets, and I got lucky and took off.
Yeah, I mean, especially back then, telling him that you can sell tickets, that was music to his ears. And
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
you were definitely known by people. And yeah, the contraptions that you guys made were very elaborate, very time consuming, very sadistic. You know,
Yeah, we've
nobody
seen.
nobody got deeply injured from the stuff that you guys would make.
Yeah, yes, somebody did.
Okay,
Blaze ended up having to go to the hospital for one of those tables where he cut his arm.
okay, all right. Do you so you said Blaze, that happened to Blaze? Do you remember what the
Yeah,
match was?
yeah. It was well. It was it was Blaze a tag team with. Oh, I don't remember who he tag team with, but it was a tag team match. But Blaze got power bombed through one of the tables, and it just hit just right, and it cut his arm pretty good, and he ended up having to go to the hospital. But no, I don't remember exactly. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was just a normal show, just one of the weekly running shows. You know, because he run 2 days a week for a while. You remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They were normally
Well,
Blaze would team with Corporal. They were a tag team for a long time, and that was the first night I ever got like really got color in a match was Blaze and Corporal laid me out with a chair shot, and I bled buckets, and I still have the photo. I knew it was going to happen, so I always had Jim Cornette always said if a manager is going to bleed, wear white. So I had the white dress shirt on, and by the end of the night, by the time they finally got everything, um, by the time they got it to where the bleeding had stopped, I don't think there was really any white left on the white dress shirt at all.
yeah, I can
And
remember.
I was working UPS at the time, and I had like 5 or 6 coworkers at the show that night. Because I encouraged them to come out, and they came out and saw that. And the guy that worked we called them cans, but the giant little pods that they would fill up with packages to put onto the airplanes. The guy that worked the pod next to me, he's like, they're carrying me out on a stretcher and I'm bleeding everywhere. And he's running beside the stretcher going, I'm not covering your pod tomorrow. You better be at work, motherfucker. And and I'm like trying not to laugh, because I'm supposed to be dead on the stretcher and I want to just laugh my ass off because this guy's like, I'm not covering your fucking can. You better get up. You better be there tomorrow. And so I came in all bandaged up, looked like, Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes doing a promo on TBS, with all the tape and stuff over the wound and everybody, because it was a Wednesday night show that it
Yeah,
happened on. And then, I'm back at work Thursday morning and everybody, the people that weren't there are like, what happened to you? And everybody's like, just bonkers over it, talking about it. And I was like the star of my area at UPS that next morning. Um, but it was Blaze and Corporal that had done that to me. So good chance that it was Blaze and Corporal in the match where Blaze got injured, but I did not remember that injury happening.
yeah. It was well, and I don't think it was real bad because the next he wrestled the next week, and we made a table every week we could, some and he said he asked us to stop making them. Blaze asked us to stop making those tables, but of course,
I bet he did.
the reason we stopped making tables was because basically I started wrestling. And Rocky and Susan, that's we just they didn't want to do it by themselves, because we done it in my garage at house. So and like I said, I owe everything to Rocky and Susan, and I kind of I let the wrestling kind of go to my head, and I started hanging out with the boys in the back and hanging out there, and I forgot about Rocky and Susan, my friends, and they kind of got tired of putting up with my shit because I was one of the boys. And
Well,
I lost contact. I lost contact with them, and I think about them all the time because I owe them a lot. But I totally let my little bit of fame go to my head, which I had nothing. I was a peon. I was there for my little bit of fun, just to prevail and to show my damn uncle that I could become a professional wrestler. And he also said I couldn't become a firefighter. You know what I did? I was a volunteer firefighter for 2 years also.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
sometimes that's what you need. You need somebody to doubt you. You need somebody to tell you can't do something, to give you that little motivation and that extra
yeah,
kick to actually get it done. Similarly, as to the story you had with Rocky and Susan, the very first podcast was Ben Rich. Then later on, I had Les Johns on the podcast. Those were the two guys that I was great friends with in college at University of Kentucky. We started going to the IWA shows in 1997 at the Kmart building. They were even more instrumental in getting they got involved first, bringing IWA to Lexington, helping promote those shows and being money on those shows, putting money into those shows. And they had gotten in before I did. And then, they saw the light and got out while they could. And I ended up sticking around, and like you had lost contact with Rocky and Susan there for like a good 10 years or so. I hadn't really talked to Ben or Les at all. And then after I got out of it and got reconnected with them over the internet, now we're great friends again. But it's a shame when you know you let the wrestling come between and ruin real life at times. And I also
yeah.
had another story where kid that I was friends with since 8th grade, when I moved across the street from him, we were best friends. And he was getting married, and I wasn't the best man, but I was one of the groomsmen in his wedding. So I went to his wedding, but it was the same day that we had Bobby Heenan on a show in Highland. And so I told him I got to leave, and I didn't stay for the whole reception. I left at, pretty much, I think I was there for maybe 20 minutes of the reception, and then I left so I could go be on the show with Bobby Heenan, and he hasn't spoken to me since.
Man,
And and I regret that every day because, he was my friend a hell of a lot longer, than what I was in wrestling,
that's
and
it's
I
a
let
bug,
wrestling
man.
get in the way, and
Yeah,
I didn't even get to interact really with Bobby Heenan on that show, because he was not in a great mood and not feeling great, because that was, after he had been diagnosed with the cancer and had been going through treatments. So it was not a good night for him. And, I lost a longtime friend just so I could say I was in the same building as Bobby Heenan, because I didn't
yeah,
get
but
anything else out of it.
yeah, that I didn't, oh, I put a lot of things wrestling first, a lot, but I never put it. Only thing I never let it interfere was with my work. I always kept my job because I knew I had to pay my bills, because I knew I wasn't going to pay my bills with that, because all the time that I was wrestling, I never got paid. I mean, I did it because I wanted to. I did it for fun. And as far as IWA goes in Charlestown, if it wasn't for Jim Fanning, there would be no IWA. Jim, you just don't. I hope you know how instrumental you are to to the IWA, because the time and money that you sunk into that place, uh, you should have owned IWA. You know, um,
Uh, you're not the only one that said that. And I mean, I definitely put my heart and soul into it. And, I was the biggest flag waver for IWA Mid South that there was at the time. And I
yeah,
I went down with the ship multiple times. And yeah, and I mean, even Patty would tell Ian, let me control the money. Um, but it was just not something that he was willing to give up control of the purse strings. And I don't know, especially back then, I don't know if I would have fared any better controlling the money. Um, because those show like you're running out in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, and it was
that was
hard to
tough.
it was hard to get people to come out there. And I mean, it
I
would have been a
mean,
lot. It would have been a lot easier in the bigger cities, but
you
you
but
deal
you
with
got
what you
run out
have.
of the bigger cities. IWA was known for that. Getting running out of the Kmart building ruined that. That was where IWA started. Kind of. If he would have just toned it down just a little bit in the Kmart building, and still, I don't think it's still been running there. Of course, no, but he wouldn't have been in trouble with everybody, and had to be the rebel. Just I don't know the whole stories because, like I said, I was only there for just a little while, but the stories I hear, it could have been prevented, and it's just he didn't have to run in a pole in Charlestown, even though he still drew pretty good. I can remember the first show in the Charlestown building. I was there. That place was full.
Oh, we could not have put an extra body in that building that first night. Me and Ian like were jumping up and down like giddy little schoolgirls and hugging and celebrating when we saw how big that turnout was that first night. And it was just
It was unbelievable. It was a popping. God, I don't remember all the details of that show, but all I remember is how good of a time I had. That and it was such a long show, and I had to work the next day because it was a Friday night show, and I was thinking to myself like, God damn, is this show ever fucking going to end? I got to work tomorrow, but I loved it so much. I didn't, it was worth it. Like I said, that that was that was a popping place, and then and even shows after that. I can the ICP show. I was in the back. I was one of the boys with that show. The ICP show was another one that place was just crammed tight. You know,
yeah, that
and
was that was quite a show. And I've gone over not that particular one, but I've gone over on other podcasts. Like my go-to is to go sit in the car if I'm get mad at it where I'm at. I'm just going to go sit in the car and you know pout whatever. And I wanted no part of being around ICP. I didn't want to be around the Juggalos. I did not want to listen to their music. Um, I've been like fake outraged for a week now because Spotify does the unwrapped or wrapped, whatever they call it, at the end of the year, where they go over like what you've been listening to and put everything into rankings and come up with all this stuff. And it told me that I was 79 years old because like I listened to the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, the Everly Brothers, Elvis. That's like all I listened to. And they're like, so based on your listening age is 79 years old. And I'm like, fuck you. I am 49, not 79, you bastards. And I got so mad about it that I've just been outraged for a week. So I wanted nothing to do with listening to the Insane Clown Posse. And so
that
when we went into the intermission and they were like going to come out and they were going to be playing their songs and doing whatever, I went out and I had parked all the way at the end of the field in behind the building. I was like one of the very last cars at the end. And I went and I sat in my car and like radio reception sucked out there. So all I could get was 8:40 a.m. the Louisville like ABC station or whatever, and they were going over the farm report with here's the price of soybeans, here's the price of corn, and I was listening to that instead of being around the Insane Clown Posse. And then when I came back in, I had missed
well,
cash flow getting beating up the guy that got into the ring, and I ended up missing
I,
that.
I got in line to pop him, and I just before I got to lay my lick on that guy, they got him out the door because everybody was popping him, and so I got in line to pop it. I'm one of the boys. I'll get him. That guy, but that was crazy. And that that ended up being the way I understand that ended up being a bad deal for the way it was handled. But I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. That's not none of my business.
Yeah, well, I think at first Cash thought that it was a part of ICP's, entourage and stuff, and he didn't really know like who it was. So yeah, and I've heard different stories on it, but like I say, I was out in the middle of a field listening to the farm futures report on on HAS radio, so I
Yeah, that was
completely
a.
missed out on that.
But I was so excited because I always kind of I'm a Cottonmouth Kings fan. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the Cottonmouth Kings, but
Never heard of
they
them.
are also they sort of done some stuff with ICP. So I like ICP. I like. Matter of fact, right now, ICP the lunacy the wrestling that they're putting out is the
Uh-huh.
only thing I'm really enjoying right now. That is the wrestling that I'm enjoying is the ICP wrestling, the Juggalo wrestling, JCW. They have it every on YouTube. I watch it and I love kind of low budget wrestling and not and they're doing a pretty good job. I think they got Vince Russo in it now. So I don't know if you've checked it out yet or not, but
I
it's
have
not
not.
bad. It's not bad. They got some good, they got some of the old boys, like I've seen Shane Mercer work Shane Mercer. He works for them every once in a while. Some of the old, I've seen Drake work for him.
Yeah, I seen they got Drake, and I know they use Too Tough Tony, and
Well, Tony's their
um,
world champion
I know they had
right
they
now.
were
Too
they
Tough
were
Tony
using
is.
they were using Mickey and Pondo, but then something happened and they
They
stopped
still
using them.
using
But
them.
then I think they did I don't know, but
They're still using them.
I know that when I went to the GCW Hall of Fame show to support Mitch and Roland back in June, it was a few months ago. Um, what is his name? Violent J was there to induct Tony because Tony was going into the Hall of Fame um, as well as Mean and Hard were. So I know I had a couple of friends like text me immediately because they were watching the live stream on the internet. And when I got out of the ring after Mitch, had given his speech and we're leaving the ring, I shook Violent J's hand and I immediately got texts going, is were you abducted by aliens? Was that a shapeshifter? What did I just witness? What's going on? There's no way that I just watched you shake hands with him. And I'm like, well, it felt like the thing to do. Yeah, it wasn't about me, so it was all about Mitch Rowland and Tony. So
Wasn't that a special night for Roland to go in?
it was fantastic. I absolutely had a blast that weekend. As soon as Nick Manawa messaged me and told me that it was happening, I literally cried. And it took some convincing to get Mitch to agree because he's like, nobody's going to know who I am. No one's going to know who I am. What? No one's going to know. And I'm like, you got to do if for anything else, you need to do this for Roland. And I had already like before Mitch had even said yes. I had my airplane ticket. I I had reached out to Nick and was like, is there any kind of a discount code for the hotel room? Um, but I was like, I got to be there. And I thought I was just going to be, sitting in the crowd. And so I took a seat in the very back of the place in like the back row and was just sitting there. And it was probably 10-15 minutes before they were going to go live and Nick had come over and grabbed me and he's like, you got to at least sit at the table with us. And I'm like, are you sure I can do that? I'm not involved in this. And he's like, come up and sit with, we got a spot for you. Come up here and sit with me and Mitch. So then I went up and sat by him and Mitch, and then they start the show and they're like, okay, you guys are first. Nick turned to me and they had like a countdown clock on their version of like the Jumbotron behind us, and it's at like 15 seconds. And Nick turned to me and he goes, "Oh, by the way, you're accepting for Roland. You're going up there with us." And I'm like, "You son of a bitch. I'm not prepared for this. I'm thinking I'm going to be, just sitting in the crowd watching. And you're freaking telling me 10 seconds beforehand that I'm going to have to go up and actually get into the ring." So, I mean, I just stood there and let Mitch talk. I'm like, nobody wants to hear from me. But without that night, this podcast doesn't happen. This t-shirt that I'm wearing that says Fannin family, like that doesn't happen. None of that happens if, Nick hadn't have told me that, hey, this is happening. And if Brett Lauderdale and GCW hadn't made the decision to do it, until that point, I had nothing to do with wrestling. Wouldn't watch it, wouldn't talk about it. People that I work with now, most of them still have no idea that I was ever involved. Some of them do, but it was a part of my past that I had swept under the rug and forgotten about, or tried to forget about. And that awakened everything.
Now you should not sweep that up under the rug, because like I said, if you sweep it under the rug, you just, you done good stuff, Jim.
Well, I appreciate that, Don. Thank you very much.
I got a couple of stories
too. So.
You was talking about, I had the privilege to wrestle both Roland, and I got the privilege to wrestle Mitch. The story with Mitch, not the same night I wrestled him, because the same night I wrestled him, the very first night I was involved in a wrestling show, Mitch got split with that grandfather clock, and I went to the hospital and was there for a long while he was there. So I was wanting to prove that I was one of the boys, and I stayed, and I went to the hospital, and that kind of made me go, man, I want to be involved with this. I see Mitch get, running off in an ambulance, with a, I don't know. When it hit, that thing just flopped over. It just flopped, and you could I remember that. I was just happened to be outside for that, watching that, and
everybody thought his ear got cut off.
Yeah, well, no, it did. Whew, and I was in the back for that, and I was there that night with Mitch. I think he took a few aspirin too. I said, "What are you doing taking them aspirin?" He goes, "Oh, you'll juice better." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't ever thought about it. And then so every time before I wrestled, I would always take aspirin, just in case."
Oh.
Mitch, he bled a lot that night. Man, he bled a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it caused the cops to come back to the building because they thought a murder had happened when they saw him.
Yeah, and then Roland, when I got to wrestle Roland, I took his Death Valley, I think that's what it's called, Death Valley driver.
Yep.
Off the second rope, where he taught me it, and we worked this spot where I was trying to get on the ropes, and that was one of the most funnest times I had, was wrestling Roland, and it was the only time I ever got paid to wrestle. I made $20 to get paid that night. I really was felt. First time I ever got paid, I said it was an awesome feeling just to make $20. But all the stuff I'd done, and I'd done some stuff. I got hit with some stuff. I got, I was in two death matches. King of the Death Match. I was in two of those. The first one I wrestled Axel. The second one I wrestled Mark Wolf. And if anybody has a tape of me wrestling Mark Wolf that year, I'm missing. I got the second night of that that show, but I need the first night of that show because I was on it. I'd like to have that DVD because I got most of my big matches on DVD, like the night where hy-zaya and well, I went through his flaming table too that night. Remember?
Yeah, yeah. So before we start, going through, I do have like a list of stuff here for us to get to. We got sidetracked a little bit there, which is fine. But you had, before we started jumping around a little bit, you had talked about, you're in the pickup truck with Ian, and he tells you, you had already told Ian that you could sell him tickets. So then he tells you, we're going to use you as Uncle Honky,
Yeah.
and put you with hy-zaya and Kickboxer.
No, 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 no. hy-zaya and Richard
Or, I mean,
X.
hy-zaya and Richard X. I was looking at my question here because the first night that, and I told you, cagematch.net is like the go-to website to try to get, all these old results and try to refresh the memory and everything else. But they didn't have you. Usually everybody in the results is like searchable. So you could like click their name and then you can go and it'll tell you everything that they did, every result, every match. But you're one of the few that weren't a searchable link. So I had to scroll through all these damn results, hoping to find, oh, I hope my eyes don't just give out and I can come up with stuff. So
This better be a
the
damn good
first
podcast, then.
the first time the first time that I see you listed on Cage Match in results is July 1st, 2000, and you manage hy-zaya against Kickboxer. Do you have any memories of the very first night that you worked on the show as Uncle Honky? Does that sound right? Do you have any memories at all of that first night where you were officially on the show?
Yes, I have vague memories. I mean, that's a lot of that's a lot to remember. Yeah, yeah. That I just remember coming out, and the guys, hy-zaya was cutting a promo saying they found me in a tree, and they have their own enforcer. They didn't really call me an enforcer. They called me. They have an uncle that they want to bring out, and they brought me out, and then automatically when I come out, they start throwing crackers and food at me. I'm getting belted with crackers, and I don't know if you know, but a peanut butter cracker at a little high rate of speed hurts.
Well, they could get you in the eye. They could get you
Yeah,
in places that it definitely would hurt.
so I come
Um,
out. So then I just sort of managed them, and it was like mainly in the way because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I kind of learned on the go. But no, I don't remember much of the match. I know I remember the introduction mainly. Coming, they found me in some damn tree, and now they're going to use me. And come on out, Uncle Honky.
okay. So after that, I was able to find that like two and a half weeks after that, July 19th, 2000, they have you listed as beating Ian in
Yeah,
a barbed wire bat match. Do you have
absolutely.
memories of that? Any
Yeah, I
memories of that
do.
match?
I do a little bit more. Yeah, I can remember. I was at work, and Ian calls me and goes, "If you see a flyer, because they had the flyers out." He said, "If you see it, because there was not. I didn't have the internet. I didn't know what the hell the internet was, and so I never was in that time. I never was much. I didn't know much about the internet, so I couldn't have seen nothing that. But he called him and said, "If you see that, don't be too worried. It'll be okay." But he said, "I got me and you in a barbed wire bat match." I go, "What?" And 'cause that's about just this would have been just. I don't think it was my. It was very very early into me doing that. I think uh, um, we had the match. We were playing around. Ian kind of walked me through it. Ian got me some color. He helped me. He cut me. He gigged me. The only I think I won that match, didn't I?
Yes. Well, Cage Match says that you beat Ian, so we
Yeah,
have
it was
that in
outside
common.
interference.
Both of us have defeated Ian Rotten in a wrestling match.
Yes,
So
I'm 1-0 against Ian. I'm a 1-0 against Ian, uh, because but I had outside in. Matter of fact, I think I can't remember who come out and jumped Ian, but they beat Ian. They jumped him and beat him down. While we kind of buffed the referee, and they came out and took Ian out, and then got the ref too, and then I got the 1, 2, 3, and beat Ian. So yeah, I have. As a matter of fact, in the corner of my room, my living room, I have the barbed wire bat that I defeated Ian Rotten with.
see, and there's a lot of things that can be said about Ian. There's a lot of things that people can, rightfully hate on him about, but he was not afraid to he put me over, he put you over. He would lose, and a lot of guys
Ian,
that ran their own companies, that was something that didn't happen often with a lot of
no,
people that ran their own
no,
company, but
no.
he would lose. He'd also put himself over. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, no, you're
But
right.
but
No, but
yeah, he did let
here
you, like, that's a moment. You still have the bat.
I do.
25 years later, you still have that bat because
Yeah.
that was that big of a moment for you.
Oh, it was after to come to fact, after the fear of me, and that I'm going to have to go through a hardcore match with Ian Rotten. You know, After that, and then he took good care of me. Ian did. Ian, like I said, Ian was a genius when it come to wrestling. And he knew how to make matches. He knew how to do. He was a good booker. He was a terrible businessman. Terrible businessman. Very good wrestling man. What he needed was Jim Fannin with the money, and let's run the show in, and we'll take care of we'll give you the money to run the show. But yeah, I just that's and like I said, I got no real big beef with the end, but he like I said, he was a wrestling genius, but a businessman disaster.
Well, and you mentioned that, he calls you up and says, "Oh, by the way, you might end up seeing a flyer. You're in this match." That's
Yeah.
how he would do it to, that's how he would do it with me too. Because we're getting to it here 2 weeks after that, August 5th of 2000 is the infamous Flaming Tables match that you had referenced earlier with
Yeah.
you, Richard X, and hy-zaya. Uh, in the Flaming Tables match that he was involved in. And that night was also my very first wrestling match. And
No kidding.
I've talked about how I have, to this day, I've had zero wrestling training, never participated in a class, nothing. And it was a Saturday night show. On like the Wednesday show before it, he's cutting a promo, and all of a sudden he goes, and added to the card, Jim Fannin versus Dave Prazak has been added to the show for Saturday night. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I promised the fans like 9 match, like whatever it was. He had promised a certain number of matches. Something happened that he lost the match. So he just put me and Dave in a match, never told me, never asked, hey, are you even willing to do this? Just his deal was, I'm going to put it, I'm going to say it in front of the fans. And then that way you can't possibly say no.
Yeah.
And so pretty
I would
much
have never said no to him anyway.
I think I had like 7 or 8 matches in my career, and all of them were stuff that, you know, on the fly, he would announce it in front of the crowd, and wouldn't have. I mean, I guess I always could have been, well, I'm too chicken shit. I'm not going to show up for that, and not shown up. I guess, I can't say that I had no choice in the matter, but it doesn't really leave you with much chance if you want to continue being on the shows. You're gonna show up and do it. But that's how he did a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
You
that
know that.
that night was my in-ring debut as a wrestler, and you're in flaming tables. What is your memory of
Oh,
that
yeah.
matchup? And
Okay. The match that we had, the match, it was me, hy-zaya, and Richard X against Kickboxer, Suicide Kid, and Ian Rotten. We brawled and brawled, and then it's time for they said, hey, when we got it worked out that the first table was going to be gone through was Richard X was going through the first table. Well, they go to light the table, and they're having problems. I don't know if you remember this or not,
oh
but
yeah,
they had problems getting the table to light. Well, first of all, they had the wrong kind of fluid. So they put Richard to the table, and he gets burnt pretty damn bad. I
yeah.
mean, he gets.
So to stop before we continue here, he's advertised flaming tables, has flaming tables. He's at the we're at the building, we're setting up like maybe an hour, half hour before opening doors. He goes, someone's got to go to the store and get the fluid to light the tables on fire. So he sends somebody, doesn't specify, what kind of fluid do you need to get to set a table on fire.
Why would you do that?
So, like I've said in the past, my first night in the ring, I'm taking a power bomb from Bull Payne. No training, no nothing. Ian doesn't tell me how to take a power bomb. I just think it's a natural thing, and I almost die because I don't know to sit up. You know, and when Bull cuts me and tells me to squeeze to get more blood, I'm squeezing with my hands, trying to squeeze blood out because I don't know what he's talking about because nobody's taking the time to tell me, and Ian just sends somebody to the store and like get the fluid to light the table on fire. Doesn't specify that, hey, it needs to be this certain thing, and they come back with charcoal lighter, and Ian doesn't say anything at the time. He doesn't say this is wrong. He doesn't say go back to the store and get something else. He just takes it and goes whatever. And so yeah, they use the charcoal lighter instead of like
A lighter
I don't
fluid.
smoke, so I don't even
It would be a lighter fluid.
it had to be like lighter fluid for
Right.
like a light.
Exactly.
And I don't use a lighter. I don't know that I think lighters are the only lighters I know are the disposable lighters that you used to see at the checkout stand all the damn time, and they run out, you throw it out, you get another one, and they're like 99 cents or whatever. So they come back with lighter fluid or charcoal fluid. I don't think any different.
Yeah.
And
I,
that's
I would. So they have problems getting it. So they finally get it lit, and then they put Richard. He gets burnt pretty bad. So we continue the match, and then it's time for hy-zaya to go through. So hy-zaya, they do the exact same thing. Boom. hy-zaya doesn't get burnt near the. They were more ready for what was going on, and then by that time they knew something was down. That something wasn't just. It wasn't going to. It was. It's time to go get to that. So they tell Ian goes, Honkey, run. So I just start barreling through the crowd and throwing chairs and running like, I'm running out because, there. So that's the reason I didn't go through because I wanted to go through that damn table because I wanted to the rest of my team went through it. I wanted to go. I mean, so when they told me to run, it broke my heart. There. But then the next that was on a Saturday. Wednesday show, I got on there on the promo cutting how I went through a flaming table and how hardcore I am and then they're going, Honkey, you run. I said, oh, God damn it, I went through a flaming table. It was kind of funny. But yeah, that night was very chaotic. And I
It
can
was
remember the
definitely
cops came
one of
that
the
night too. I don't know if you know this or not, but the cops got called that night too. They were there because the cops come up to Ian, and then Ian I'm standing right beside Ian while this cop's coming up talking, and then he goes, "No, it's a work, this, trying to, because they wanted to know why he got burnt."
right.
And Ian throws a punch and says, "No, it's all a work." And then I guess they talked the guy into it because I don't think nobody ever got in any trouble for it, not that I know of. Just Richard, went through some pain and
Yeah,
there. I think
he had a lot of he had to go through a lot with that, and I can't even imagine the pain that he had to go through with all the burns all over him from that. And
he definitely got the worst of that deal. But I it was still if I had to do it all over again, I'd have went to that table or I would have I I feel that I let the guys down by me not going through that table. They had it planned that good too. I was, they were gonna get me two of them up, and I was gonna climb up on the rope, and two of them were gonna grab me. It was all. It was gonna be a good. It was gonna be a good spot, and I missed out, but I had to run instead. So I mean, but I always was the coward of the bunch, so I had to, being heel is so much better than being babyface. That is for
oh,
sure.
tell me about it. I'm about to ask you about that here in a second, but first, had no memory of this, but you're listed as also having defeated Chris Hero.
Yes, sir.
What do you remember about beating Chris Hero?
Well, I don't remember. It was outside interference again. People helping me, but that was a night that we were very, very shorthanded, and I can remember, going into the show, not thinking I was just going to hang out, not have nothing to do. I was just hanging out with the boys that night. I just wanted to come and hang out. Ian comes in and goes, "Honky, you're working." I go, "What?" I tried to talk him out. I said, "No, you don't need me, man." He goes, "Yeah, you." So I ended up working. I ended up working twice. I mean, I worked
Well,
a three. I worked a 3-man tag. It was me, Alistair Fear, and I can't remember who the third guy was. It was It was either like Prophet, not Prophet. Quinn. It was either Quinn. It was one of those guys. Like maybe it was Prophet. You remember Prophet?
yeah.
Yeah, he always wore the beanie, didn't he?
Well, that was Nathan Future.
Maybe that's who it was. Maybe that's who it was. But we had a three, and I don't remember who we wrestled, but we had a 3-way, and then actually me and Chris Hero worked a little bit of match, and then I got the outside interference, and I got the pinning. So I always want to. I've never got in touch with Chris Hero since when he was in the WWE and everything. I always wanted to text him. I still beat you. Yeah, I'm still 1-0 against you because me and Chris always had a good relationship. We were always kind of good in the back. He always was good to me. He never act too big for me or nothing like that. Because when he was there, he was just a rookie like us. He was just as green as we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, great time.
So you and Brent Blades both have victories over Chris Hero. Me and you both have victories over Ian Rotten. So we've got
Kind of
that stuff
crazy.
going for
Small
us.
world,
Crazy
man.
world, right?
Yes, it
Um,
is.
and then after you had defeated Chris Hero, you already alluded to it earlier. The 2000 King of the Death matches, you went against Axel Rotten. What,
Yeah.
what are your memories of facing Axel and being in a King of the Death matches? Was that like a dream come true for you?
Yes. Yes. When I got to you hear I was going to get to be part of that, it was like, hey, we're one short. Do you mind doing it? I go, absolutely don't mind. So I didn't know who I was going to wrestle to the very end. Now, rest his soul. So, um, I saw Axel doing some stuff right before the match. And I was going, I'm going to have to wrestle this guy right now. He's going to be out of his fucking mind. There was some drugs that he done before then, and I was really kind of worried that I said he's supposed to blade me, and I was really worried. But he worked through as a professional, and he did a great job. He uh, he basically beat the shit out of me, which he should have, but he took care of me. But he beat the shit out of me. Um, And I can remember the best spot that I can remember about that match is where he took the guitar over my head. So I got to get a guitar smash over my head. I thought that was cool as shit. And then, he put me through a barbed wire table. He put me through a barbed wire board, and then it got me pinned, and he pinned me in the barbed wire board.
Okay.
I
And
don't remember every little spot, but
right.
one of the spots I do remember is the first of the match. He says, "When I turn around, you hit me with you club me in the back real hard." So I'm wanting to lay this in because I think so. I'm going to club him as fucking hard as I can. He turned this is not so hard, kid. So I was afraid after that. I said, "Oh shit, he's going to kill me now." But he took, like I said, it's a perfect professional. Knowing how green I was, he uh he helped me get my color. Because I wasn't quite ready to do, to blade yet. And it was, we didn't share blades. That was kind of cool because I was really important. I said, no, I'm not sharing blades with anybody. But
Right.
he actually, I saw, it was really kind of cool that and he didn't have a problem with using two blades. And it was pretty cool.
All right. And then I got you talked about how much more fun it was to be a heel, which I agree infinite amounts. Um, so like I say, going through these results and trying to find things like all of a sudden, like after King of the Death, they got you facing hy-zaya 2 shows in a row. Did you turn babyface
No, 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 no,
or did hy-zaya
no.
turn?
Isaiah turned babyface.
Okay.
I stayed heel. I got I got to running with Todd Morton and all those guys at that time. I was managing Todd Morton and all them a lot there. So, but I think I wrestled Isaiah one on the Thanksgiving show.
It very well could be because it was like 11/20 November 23rd and November 25th. You wrestled hy-zaya on both of those shows. So very good chance that's right there at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, me and Isaiah worked. We got to go in the building. We worked and worked and worked. Isaiah taught me a lot that night. Because even though I went to Danny Davis's school, he didn't teach me a lot about how good to bump. I never got to bumping down. And then Isaiah worked with me a lot and got me where I took some good bumps and I was able to do some suplexes. And I got that tape on video and I kill Isaiah with some of that stuff. I said, poor Isaiah, man. But we laid it in there that night. He said, I want these punches to be real. He goes, lay them in. And I swear to God, I tried to knock him out every time I hit him because I can tell you, I saw stars a couple times when he hit me. I said, whoo. I was like, took back and Isaiah just thought that said he just kicked the shell of me, man, or he just punched the shell. But yeah, yeah, that was a fun match. I got uh, I got in the middle of it. We had a spot where I had him beat down pretty hard. I was just beating him down, doing a few honky splashes, and I got him. I went to the concession stand and got water. Uh, and by that time, I was blown up so bad that I had to get some water. So we make it through the match, and then um, that's when I got hooked up at the end of the match with Todd Morton and them. They came and done the run in. Isaiah beat me with his little dive off the top rope, but after that they come in and did beat him down. And I was so winded. I can remember Todd Morton bringing me out my asthma inhaler and giving it to right there on tape. I'm up there. I can see it right there on the hard camera pointing down on there. They got me. I'm going. I'm handing me my asthma pupper, and I'm going because I was so fucking blown up. I was blown up the whole match. But Isaiah and me worked through it. We hit every spot right. It was the best match that I ever had as far as working a match. Now I worked some matches where and there's a lot of stuff that they're missing on this because I got to wrestle Bull Payne.
That was my next one. Because you wrestle Bull two shows in a row after you wrestle hy-zaya 2 shows in a row, then you wrestle Bull Payne 2 shows in a row. So I had to ask, were you scared shitless? Bull Payne?
What do you think?
I'm gonna guess yes, because I know
yes.
I was.
Yes, and one of those matches was a lumberjack strap. Where the outside the ring with all the guys with straps, and I hate to mob. One of the things I hate more in life is to get hit in the back with a belt. I mean, just because I hate it hurts. I'm weak in the back, man. Like to get slapped in the back, I hurts. It hurts me. It hurts my soul. It hurts so bad. So yeah. What I remember about that match is we're working, and he's trying to throw me out. And I know he's trying to throw me outside, and I keep going, nope, I'm not going outside. You're going to beat me. I'm not going there. You can beat me up, Bull, but I'm not going out there to get beat up with them belts. So finally, he looks at the referee, just says it out loud. He goes, "Will you tell that motherfucker to get out of the ring?" So when he said that, I got the fuck out of the ring. I think I didn't even take a bump or him throw me out. I just rolled out and said, all right. So I'm running around getting that. I'd rather for Bull to beat me up, man, because they strapped the shit out of me. And I mean, I think I got to throw Bull out once. And they didn't, but he was only out a second. But yeah, I don't remember. I think they got Bull should have won them 2 matches, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I think the first one was no contest, and that set up the rematch where he beat you.
I must have done something stupid, got some run in or something. I didn't. Yeah, but yeah, I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I could have never in a million years imagined me wrestling Bull Payne. I said, "Oh my God, I'm wrestling Bull Payne." I thought to myself, I said, but you know what? Besides me being stupid and not getting out of the ring and stuff like that, Bull and me had, the way I remember they were decent matches, and he did, because he didn't kill me. I mean, he never hurt me. And if they would have been bad and I'd been doing something real stupid, I think Bull would have hurt you. I think he would have popped you with something.
Oh yeah, I know. Necro like would put a blade on his finger, and Bull, he had to wrestle Bull, and Bull's like, I don't want you to put that on your finger. I don't trust you. Don't put it on your finger. And Necro's like, I've got you. I know what I'm doing. And Necro ended up like cutting Bull on the nose, somewhere around the face or eye. And that was the night that Bull just swung as hard as he could and hit him right on top of the head with the baseball bat. And like Necro ended up leaving IWA for quite a while after that. And I think even on commentary, I'm like, if anybody, when you're driving home tonight, if you see Necro's head on the side of the road after he just got it disconnected from his shoulders by that baseball bat, please return it.
Yeah,
and so like, yeah, if you'd have fucked up too bad, Bull would have let you know about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I was, but I was, I'm very fortunate that I can say that I got in the ring with him because he is one of the classiest guys. I mean, if you know him outside the ring, you wouldn't, you wouldn't know because Bull's, I don't want to kill his persona, but Bull's a sweetheart.
Mark Wolf already killed the persona in the last episode, said the exact same thing. But you had mentioned earlier in the podcast that, you had to work so much with your real job and you had to choose that over IWA. That must be what happens from then on, because like it's very sporadic seeing you pop up on IWA shows after the stuff with Bull. Was it real work
No,
getting in
well,
the
no,
way, or was there an injury? Was there, because
no.
like
I mean, some of that stuff they don't tell you. I'm with them, like they don't say with manager. Some of that stuff, I mean, I may have been there, but I'm not
right.
getting,
Yeah,
because
there's a lot like that with, sometimes they'll say with Jim Fannin, sometimes they won't. And I'm like, I'm at every show. Either
yeah, I mean,
either put me on the shows or
I was
don't.
at a lot of shows, and with just being a manager, and I managed kickboxer. God, I mean, I managed kickboxer damn near every time he wrestled. I was you with kickbox, and that's somebody else I learned a lot how to be a manager from was kickboxer. Man, he taught me a lot. Kickboxer taught me a lot. He took a liking to me. Matter of fact, at my real work where I work, I hired. Now you're not going to believe this. I hired him and Necro at the same time to work at my shop. It
That
was so
did
they
that did
were
that end
so.
well?
I couldn't keep Dylan from going across the street drinking Boone's Farm from Thornton's. He'd go over to their place and get in their bathroom and just drink a whole bottle of wine. Finally, I couldn't keep him from drinking, but he was my buddy, so I wouldn't fire him. And that was my shop. I mean, I run it. Kickboxer one time uh, had a car dropped on his foot. And
Mm.
of course, his car did not really hurt his foot. I mean, I think it missed it but he worked that. But that night he couldn't work. That night he had to leave early because he had a show to go to. So he worked, he wrestled, and then he wrestled like another show. And then he called in the next day because his foot was hurt, but he wrestled that night too. So he wrestled 2 nights in a row. So I knew it was a work there, and I let it be because he wasn't suing us or nothing like that. So, yeah, and then Dylan, like I said, I just couldn't keep Dylan sober, so I had to eventually. He quit. I'm so glad he quit because I was fixing that to fire. And to fire a buddy is terrible. I mean,
Right.
I don't know if I could have fired him or not. I just had to just. I'm glad they quit. They both quit. But yeah, I had them working at the same time, so it was kind of a circus at my job there for a little while.
I can only imagine. Um, and around this time, you're talking about managing Kickboxer. That's around the same time that you had already talked the 2001 King of the Death matches where you wrestle Mark Wolf. And like anybody listening to this, if you've got a link to that match, if you've got something, please let me know so I can, send that over to good old Uncle Honky Don here, and so he can have a copy, get a copy of
Please.
this match.
I got
But
the
what are
first
your
night of it.
memories? What are your memories of that match?
Uh, Probably making Mark look, I probably made Mark look bad that night because, you know, uh, like I said, I didn't have a lot of training, and so I was really green, and I can remember, Mark basically lead me the way on that too. Mark led the match. We had a decent match. I can remember, getting to put him through. I got to put him through a barbed wire board, and he put me through a couple barbed wire boards. He took a honky splash. Um, I took his finisher off where we put two chairs and then we put a barbed wire board over the two chairs, and I took his finisher through it, and that's how we ended the match. But yeah, it was a fun night. That was one of the first nights that I ever had to do a color myself to get my color all by myself because Mark didn't feel comfortable, gigging me, which I understand that completely.
Right.
And I can see it, and I have it. I had it on VHS tape, and I loaned it out to somebody, and and I do remember who I loaned it out to, but they won't admit that they lost it. So I can't, because I let it go so long before I realized I didn't have it. So then I had a buddy of mine borrow them and surprise me and get them put on a DVD. So I went from VHS. I got them on DVD, but I'm missing night one. where me and Mark wrestled. And right there on the hard camera, though, I was trying to see right there, get my first color. You could just see me with the blade right there on the camera going, you know, and then the commentary goes, I heard Axel says, yeah, he's hiding that very well. You know? Yeah, so yeah, but we had a decent match, I think. I mean, did you all talk about it at all, or?
We barely talked wrestling at all on the podcast with Mark. We talked about all the shenanigans going on at Wrestle House, Indiana, and road trips driving Ian crazy. And I mean,
Yeah,
we had so much out of the ring stuff to talk about that
that was
we barely touched on actual wrestling.
that was stuff I missed out on. I mean, I didn't get to do the road trips with the boys. They're all going, hey, you want to go with us, Honky? You know, you come with us, and we'll go up there. We'll get you on the show. Blah blah. But I always, like I said, I worked 75, 80 hours a week, so it was so hard. I couldn't leave and be gone for. I mean, I couldn't leave and be gone Friday and Saturday both nights, or Wednesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, whatever they had. But I could have always went to Evansville and worked the Evansville shows. I could have worked, all those shows they were working there. I mean, they could have got me on. I just didn't. Like I said, I just had. I was making pretty good money at the time, so I chose to stay ahead and feed my family. And
well, that was the right choice to make. Yeah, you got to pay the bills. Got to keep a roof over your head, food on the table.
Yeah. But I'm really surprised. I had several matches against Ian that I actually wrestled, besides the one that we talked about with the barbed wire bat. I had a few matches that I've had with Ian, because I can remember sitting in the crowd. My mom sitting in the crowd going, hollering, bust him open, Ian. Give him out, bust him anymore. And then he would just knock the shit out of me with something. And then I would get some color. I would be gonna be hard weighed. I can remember an oak door he busted over my head. He got me the hard way. And then my mom saw that, and I had all that blood was running down, and I was trying to get it in my mouth so I could spit it at her. But then after she saw me bleed, she got all upset and wouldn't come back to wrestling no more. Yeah, so I can't believe they ain't got all that. That goes to show that some of those stuff isn't accurate, because I've had a lot more going on than what they got on paper.
Well, and like I say, I could have missed it by just scrolling through trying to find your name. And
no, you didn't.
I mean,
I have. There was a website, and I can't remember. I'd have to look through my phone and find it. I got it saved somewhere. But there was one that had me with a few matches, and I said, well, I was on this one. I was on this one. But a lot of them was just being a manager. But, sometimes, like I said, I got to anywhere that I was the manager. When I got Kickboxer wrestled, it was Kickboxer. I think Kickboxer and Simon Diamond wrestled.
Could have been.
Simon Diamond had Don Marie with him, and I got to work. I got to do some spots with Don Marie. I thought that was cool as shit. I can't. You'll never know that because it's not on paper, but I got the memory of it. So I mean, I've done a lot. I definitely fulfilled my life, my childhood dream of wrestling. I so much that I knew the business enough from being in the back, seeing how that was run, that I stopped not like wrestling. I stopped for a while. After I left there, I didn't watch any wrestling at all. Because it kind of ruined me.
Same here.
It ruined me. It made me sad because I loved wrestling so much, and then I knew how I knew how wrestling was, and I knew the corruption of it. I knew, really. I mean, I saw it at its worst. I think, I don't think it could be run much worse, than it was.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you, and that's a great time to start wrapping this up. Is that what led to your leaving? Was the fact that as you said, the corruption and just
it just got to where
negative experiences?
Well, I got No, I got into other things. And wrestling, like I said, where I got into other things, I started getting some people in my life that gave me different opportunities to do, and I got hanging out and doing other things, and I didn't have time for wrestling. So wrestling just kind of faded out because it just faded out.
Yeah. Well, uh, anything else that you wanted to talk about before we
No,
call this
I
one
mean,
an episode? Anything we didn't touch on that you want to get out there?
I will. I will got to say I got to meet some cool people. I mean, CM Punk, I got to meet him. He's a world champion. So I got to see a lot of people come through there that if it wasn't for IWA, they wouldn't be where they're at. And I hate that IWA has the background that it does, or the tainted what everybody thinks it was. But like I said, me and you both know some champions come through there, and if it wasn't for IWA, they would not be champions now. If it wasn't for IWA, CM Punk would not be where he is now. He may not admit that anymore, but IWA put him where he's at.
Well, we definitely gave him the platform to launch him into much bigger and better things.
Yes, yes, yes.
And last two things for you. What was your favorite thing that you got to do in wrestling?
One of them was when I got to wrestle Roland. It was that much fun. And then the Thanksgiving match with hy-zaya, that I had an actual wrestling match that night. It wasn't just me getting hit with stuff and getting thrown around, and because I was that, but me and hy-zaya did a match, and it was beautiful to me.
That's great. I'm glad that you got to have that memory and moment. And you said people were asking about you. They're going to be excited to hear that I got you on this episode. I want to thank you very much for joining me. Is there any way that the fans can reach out to you? You talk about you're not that big on the internet. So is there a way that fans can reach
Well,
out?
I'm on Facebook. I don't remember what my Instagram. I'm on Instagram, but I don't remember what it is. I don't get on Instagram a lot, but I am on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, and Facebook. I said, and I'm on TikTok every once in a while. You can find me on TikTok. I can scroll through my phone and tell you what It's just Don Broady, basically, is what it is on all of these. If you wanted to search that on TikTok or Instagram, you could find me.
Okay, and that's Broady.
Correct, Don.
So Don, Don, and then Broady, Broady, for anybody that wants to try to find Uncle Honky online and share some memories and let him know that you appreciated his time in IWA Mid South. Like I say, it's been great to have you on here today, Don. I want to thank you very much for joining me. And
I hope I was a good guest.
you were great. This was great to go over with you. This might be the last time I do this at work. I've got too many things popping up on my computer screen. I tried to end my day a little early, but when people see that I'm still in the building, that means to them I'm still on the clock. So for about the fourth time, somebody's walked past the room here and looked through the window and making it known that they're wanting to talk to me. So with that, I'll again thank you very much for joining me today, Don. It's been great to catch up with you. I look forward to continuing our chats. And this is going to wrap up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. Remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by clicking that like button and hit subscribe. If you are interested in vintage IWA Mid South t-shirts, give my godson James Christopher a follow on Twitter at Candido24K_. And if you're looking to have some design work done for yourself, shoot James Christopher a DM. You can follow me on Twitter at jfannin73 and on Instagram at IWA Fannin73. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written, so let it be done. Good day.